Hey there, seventh graders. This is Mr. Garnett Cook. This is going to be a short screencast that's a piggybacking off of one of the assignments that you had from last week, which was about Homer's epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and specifically one of the questions that was asked, which is about gods possessing human characteristics. And I want to just do a quick follow up to that, share a couple of responses that some of you gave, and just make a couple of general points about how the gods are portrayed in Greek literature and how that portrayal contrasts with sometimes our modern world's conception of godlike behavior. You see the here. This is an artist's rendering of a scene in the Odyssey. If you remember, the god Poseidon tries to destroy Odysseus's boat as he's trying to sail back home toward Ithaca, and this is sort of an artist's rendering of what that might have looked like. But it gets to a point that several of you actually wrote about in your responses to that question, which is that these gods get angry and these gods sometimes lash out. And that's an example of that happening. So I just wanted to point out a couple of other human-like characteristics that Greek gods sometimes possess, and then share with you a quote from student responses on that assignment. One characteristic you often see with Greek gods is favoritism, taking sides. This was particularly true in the story, the Iliad, where you had gods taking the side of the Greeks, some taking the side of the Trojans. And one of you said that the gods interfere in human stories because they favor certain people. That's absolutely true. You see that throughout Homer's epics. You also see that in other Greek literature. Gods taking sides and actually taking the sides of specific people and trying to manipulate the plot in order to ensure their success. Gods manipulate. This is connected to the first point about taking sides, but they manipulate the story. The gods get involved at specific key points in the plot and interfere in a way that changes the course of the story. One of you said that the gods and goddesses also love to manipulate, much like people enjoy doing. People could be manipulative, and so are the gods in a lot of Greek stories. Uh, Gods hold grudges. And this takes us back to our picture of Poseidon here. And one of you correctly pointed out that Poseidon had a grudge against Odysseus, and so he made his travel by sea difficult. So holding grudges, Poseidon was angry at Odysseus and tried to destroy him as because of that. Another thing that was pointed out is that gods are imperfect. They make mistakes. They do the wrong thing. They're not infallible. One of you said they aren't the perfect being for forgiveness or anything, and they too make mistakes. Absolutely true. The imperfection of the gods in these stories is something that comes out over and over and over again. There are other characteristics that gods possess, human-like characteristics: jealousy and envy, love and desire, sadness. So these Greek gods in literature are portrayed very much as human beings, obviously with godlike powers, but with very human-like characteristics. It's an interesting feature of Greek literature, and it gives you some insight as to how the Greeks understood their own gods. Very different from gods in the modern world, particularly in what we would call the Judeo-Christian tradition of sort of like a perfect, all-knowing, otherworldly God. These gods are very human. They're very much of the human world, and they're interacting with humans in these stories all the time and possessing these very human-like characteristics. And a lot of you in your responses made clear that you understood that. So that was really cool. Anyway, just a quick screencast to respond to one of the assignments. I'll be doing things like these from time to time. If you missed it, about a week and a half ago, I posted a screencast about some of the artifacts you selected for the short history of Greece. I pointed out a couple of ones that individuals found and talked a little bit about them. So if you missed that screencast from about a week and a half ago, go back and check that out as well. Anyway, I hope you're having a good week, and I will see you soon.